Boys, what's good? It's Herm. We're here today to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans, specifically as we enter draft season, because according to Shams today, the Pelicans are expected to aggressively pursue a trade for Scoot Henderson. So they're trying to trade for either the second or the third pick in this year's NBA draft to try to add their point guard of the future. And I'm going to just tell you right now that won't be cheap, but the Pelicans are clearly trying to pivot from what they're doing and take the next step, and they think that Scoot Henderson can be that guy for them. But before we get into it, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy. If you don't like the content, you can always unsubscribe later, that's fine. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's not waste any time. So let's talk about the report from today. According to Shams, the New Orleans Pelicans will aggressively pursue a trade for either the second or third pick in this year's NBA draft, which is only 9 days away. Their goal is to land Scoot Henderson to be their point guard of the future and new franchise player. It's known the Blazers have been looking to move the third pick, but New Orleans might just hop them and trade with the Hornets for number 2. With all the recent off-court drama surrounding Zion Williamson, as well as his injury history, it's speculated he might headline the deal. So, why are the Pelicans being so aggressive in this all-of-a-sudden pursuit of Scoot Henderson? Let's get into 3 reasons why I think that they are being so aggressive in doing this and why they want Scoot so badly. But let's get into that here in a second. And yeah, let's get into it. So, first off, reason number 1. They've been searching for a point guard for years now. The Pelicans' last real solid point guard was Drew Holiday all the way back in 2020. He was a constant presence during the Anthony Davis era, and his defense and playmaking was crucial to the team and what they did. They went through Devontae Graham, some Lonzo Ball, which he wasn't really treated as a point guard like he should have been. Stan Van Gundy kind of tried to play Lonzo off ball. It was ridiculous. It was just bad coaching. And have even been forced to try to move CJ McCollum to the 1 spot since Drew was traded. So in terms of point guards, it hasn't been good look or good luck for the Pelicans over the past few years. Scoot Henderson presents a reliable presence at the 1 spot for the next decade plus, and one of the most athletic point guards of this century. It's kind of just him, Russ, Derrick Rose, and John Wall is the most athletic point guards of this century in terms of the draft, and Scoot Henderson is up there with just a dynamic, physical, fast, explosive force that just doesn't come around very often. He's truly a generational talent. Getting an all-star at the 1 spot sets your team up very well for success, and it's worth giving up a lot to obtain. So I think one of the reasons they're being so aggressive for Scoot is to look at getting that point guard for the future, which is what they've been missing. Secondly, they have a Zion problem. Zion Williamson has missed 194 games in his 4-year career due to injury and rehabilitation. He has only played in 114 games, meaning he's missed 63% of his possible games played. Many believe that he could have come back for this year's postseason chase, yet he just stated that he didn't feel like Zion, leading many to believe that he doesn't have passion for the game. Despite his clear first-team All-NBA level talent, it feels as if he'll only play about 40 to 50 games per season. It's been revealed as of late as well that Zion has some real off-court issues, such as being a sex addict and having a porn addiction. So, not looking good for Zion in those aspects. Just not something that's necessarily going to be detrimental to his game, but it's not a good PR look for him or the team, and all the stuff that's been coming out in what was supposed to be a happy week as his girlfriend is pregnant, but there were a lot of other issues that seemingly kind of downplayed the happiness of that moment and made him look bad. But he has been a 2-time All-Star, despite missing 63% of his games and his career high in games being 61. He's a 2-time All-Star and he's a great player, but there's just a lot that comes along with him. And thirdly, this team is close. The Pelicans have had an interesting last couple of seasons. In 2022, New Orleans rallied from a well below 500 start, it was kind of shocking actually, to make the playoffs through the play-in tournament. This was despite Zion missing the entire season. They used excellent rookie campaigns from Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Jose Alvarado to outperform their expectations. In 2023, they were the 1 seed in the Western Conference as late as December 12th, then was struck by the injury bug as both Zion and BI missed major time with injuries. They dropped all the way to the play-in tournament and ended up missing the playoffs as they couldn't replicate their 2022 play-in tournament success, losing to, I believe, the Thunder in the first round of that play-in tournament. And it's not a good look, especially because Zion didn't come back, but despite that, they're close. If they had a star who could be counted on to be on the court more often than Zion, they could take a leap from playoff cusp to upper half of the West playoff picture. So with that in mind, the Pelicans are looking at adding Scoot rather than a guy probably like Zion who's super injury prone. When Zion and Ingram have been on the floor, this team has been great. They've been very good together, and it feels like they have a core that's pretty deep and should be a really good team, but there's just one thing holding them back, and honestly it's Zion not being able to be on the floor. But let's start off with 3 deals for each team here for the second or the third pick. What would a deal with the Hornets look like? Starting off with Zion heading to Charlotte. The Hornets receive power forward Zion Williamson, and the Pelicans get the number 2 pick, which would be Scoot Henderson, Gordon Hayward, mostly for money, but is a solid player when on the floor, and center Kai Jones. Hornets add the perfect pick and roll partner for LaMelo Ball. Just the excitement of those two together would be awesome for Charlotte. It'd be super fun to watch. They kind of grew up playing against each other, and if they were on the same team, the amount of pick and rolls, lobs, alley-oops, slams would be awesome, and with him and Miles Bridges in the front court would make one of the most athletic, high-flying front courts of the past decade, probably since Lob City. So we could have a new Lob City in Charlotte, and that would be super fun to watch, especially with their announcer. And for the Pelicans, they add their point guard of the future in Scoot Henderson, as well as a solid forward in Gordon Hayward, who can still be a 20-point-per-game guy when he's on the floor, but like Zion, has a lot of injury issues, but if he's on the floor, it's really solid. So after a deal like this, if you're the Hornets, you're looking at LaMelo, Terry Rozier, Bridges, Williamson, and Mark Williams, and I think with the top 2 of Zion and LaMelo, as well as Bridges there as the third, you're a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. I think you just are. This takes them from like a play-in tournament the last couple of years when they were healthy to a kind of certified playoff team. I don't think they'd be a contender, but they'd be one of the most fun watches in the entire NBA. And with the Pelicans, you'd be running out a lineup of Scoot, CJ McCollum, Ingram, and Hayward as your forwards, and Valanciunas. So you get a replacement for Zion, albeit one that's not as good, in Gordon Hayward, but you also add a great point guard. So I think that takes the Pelicans to the next level as well. But let's talk about a different star heading out. So Brandon Ingram heads to Charlotte. So the Hornets receive Brandon Ingram as well as the 14th pick, because despite BI being a little more durable than Zion, I still think his value probably isn't quite as high, because the upside with BI just isn't quite the same as Zion, although I think both of them are all-star level wings. And the Pelicans here get Scoot again with the number 2 pick, Gordon Hayward, and Kai Jones. The Hornets receive an all-star wing, an elite scorer, who's less injury-prone than Zion. They get a guy, who's going to play a lot of games for them, so you're getting rid of Gordon Hayward. Yes, you don't get that top pick that you could have had, but you get a guy who can replace Hayward and just be way more durable, be on the court more, and be a 25-point-per-game scorer. I think maybe he is less redundant with Miles Bridges as well. Miles Bridges and Zion play kind of similar, despite Zion being the better player, but Brandon Ingram presents you a little bit different face-up game and doesn't need the ball in his hands a ton to get you a lot of points. Is just kind of low-maintenance star, I would say. I really like BI, and his fit could be better, but if I'm the Hornets, I would rather get Zion, but Brandon Ingram isn't a bad ad for me either. I wouldn't be against the idea. And for the Pelicans, you keep Zion, so you get that super high guy and you keep him around with his upside, and still add Scoot for a historically athletic pick and roll. The pick and roll with Scoot and Zion both coming downhill at you would be terrifying, because both of those guys are so physically strong, can blow through defenders, plow people over, and finish at the rim. So both of those two guys together in a pick and roll would be a massive headache to try to defend, and I'd be really interested to see what that looked like. So they don't keep Ingram there, and the Zion injury stuff would still be a concern, but all of a sudden you'd have Scoot, McCollum, probably I guess Gordon Hayward at the 3, Zion at the 4, and Valanciunas at the 5. In the Hornets, you just replace Zion with Ingram, and it's a similar looking roster, just with a swapped out star. And third is the stuff deal, which I don't think will work for either team, but I think it's worth bringing up. So they offer you Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels, Jonas Valanciunas, and the 14th pick in exchange for number 2 and Terry Rozier. Hornets fill out roster with valuable pieces, as well as a high upside wing in Murphy. We've seen Murphy have a few 30-point games as a guy who looks really good when given more of an opportunity. So in Charlotte, maybe he'd get that. Maybe he's allowed to be a little more than what we've seen in New Orleans. They also get a great defensive guard in Dyson Daniels, who could be a nice fit next to LaMelo Ball in the long term, and Jonas Valanciunas, who's a better center than they have right now, although I do like Mark Williams and his upside. For the Pelicans here, you get the number 2 pick in Scoot Henderson, as well as Terry Rozier. So the Pelicans at a potential elite 6th man in Terry Rozier, because I assume he'd be off the bench behind Scoot and CJ McCollum, as well as not giving up BI or Zion in the Scoot deal. But I think if the Hornets get this on the phone, they hang that up. I don't think they're super interested. I just think they could get better offers than this, and I think it would take either one of Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson. Now let's talk about what it would look like with the Blazers. So the first one is Zion heading to Portland. So the Blazers get Zion in 14. The Pelicans give up number 3, Anthony Simons, and forward Nasir Little. Blazers get the best teammate Damian Lillard will have ever had. I think Zion at his best is better than LaMarcus Aldridge, is pretty clearly better than CJ McCollum. So you bring Zion into Portland to be the pick and roll partner with Damian Lillard, and those two guys are your faces of the franchise. And you get rid of kind of the log jam of similar players with Lillard and Simons, free up more time for Sharp at the 2 guard spot, and just add an elite forward. What am I thinking here? Jeremy Grant would actually be kind of like a perfect trade piece, but because it'd be a sign and trade, it doesn't make a ton of sense before the draft. So in terms of that, it would be Simons instead of Grant, but could be Grant if they could figure out a way to work that out. I just think that would be hard to do. The Pelicans here get 2 guards with star potential in Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons. However, this could put them in a weird spot with CJ McCollum, where maybe they'd have to trade him because you would have 3 guards who are really good. So that could be an issue, but I don't mind it. But I've seen a lot of Portland fans be like, we don't want to take Zion and his off-the-court issues, especially with the amount of games he's going to play, just because Damian Lillard's clock isn't super long. You need a guy who's durable to play with Dame right now and give him the best opportunity to win. And it could be a while before we see Zion really get the injury stuff in control. So I've seen Portland fans be more interested in a deal for Brandon Ingram. So Brandon Ingram heading to Portland here. The Blazers get BI and Herb Jones, and the Pelicans get number 3, Simons, and Nasir Little. You could throw number 14 in there as well from the Pels, but you get a all-star forward in BI if you're the Blazers, as well as a truly elite defensive wing in Herb Jones. But the length and defensive capability of Brandon Ingram and Jeremy Grant in the front court, to me, would be awesome to see. I would love to see that. And if they weren't sold on bringing Shaedon Sharpe along this early, they could run BI or Jeremy Grant at the 2 guard spot, and I think both of those guys would be solid in that position. So all of a sudden you would have Dame, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Jeremy Grant, and Yusuf Nurkic. And while I'm not sure that Blazers team is necessarily contenders, they're a very good Western Conference team, and I would say probably in the upper half of the West. It's probably like a 4 or 5 seed, but a very good one at that, and I'd be interested to see how good that team could be. In the Pelicans, again, you get 2 guards with star upside in Scoot and Simons, and you get Nasir Little to be a wing kind of replacement for Ingram, although clearly he's not the same level of player. And finally, let's talk about the stuff deal. So Blazers here get Trey Murphy, Jonas Valanciunas, Dyson Daniels, and 14. The Pelicans get number 3, Nurkic, and Nasir Little. So the Blazers get a center upgrade going from Nurkic to Valanciunas, as well as 2 interesting kind of youngish pieces in Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels. So yes, it makes the Blazers better right now because they've got a better center, as well as a nice wing in Trey Murphy who you can play alongside Jeremy Grant. You get to keep Anthony Simons, but I'm still not sure this is enough for pick number 3. I think the Pelicans again no, sorry, the Blazers again are getting better offers than this, just like the Hornets would be. But the Pelicans take on Nurk's contract, but get their point guard of the future in Scoot Henderson. They have to give up pieces of their rotation to do it, but obviously you would have to do that. So then you have Scoot, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion, and Nurkic, I guess, would be your center. Maybe they play Jackson Hayes at the 5. But this is obviously the best one for the Pelicans. I think makes them the best right away, but I just don't think you can do it without giving up one of those 2 stars. So in conclusion, getting Scoot Henderson won't be cheap. If the Pelicans really want to land Scoot, it will come at the cost of one of their all-star wings. Either Zion or BI will most likely be the cost of business. However, I'd argue it's worth it personally. Zion comes with his own host of problems, and if you can add a generational point guard prospect in exchange for him, it can drastically change the future of this franchise. It's a bold play and could backfire if Zion ever turns around his injury problems, but Scoot will be elite. And they can get another valuable player in the deal on top of Scoot. So in terms of what it means for the Pelicans, yes, you'd have to part with one of Zion or BI, but if you can get Scoot and someone like Simons or like either Rozier or Hayward or Oubre or whoever it would be from the Hornets, I would make that deal. I would. And I honestly wouldn't be too put away by getting off of Zion because of all the off the court stuff, because of the injury stuff, because of the mentality stuff. So if you can kind of do that while getting Scoot and another good player, I think you're probably actually kind of happy with that, and I think the Pelicans would be kind of smart to do it. So they're going to be aggressive in trying to get Scoot, and that could mean moving off of Zion, it could mean moving off of Ingram, but I'm telling you right now, it would mean moving off of one of them. And if you're the Blazers, getting a guy like Zion or BI is exactly what you're looking for and moving out of the 3rd pick. And if you are the Hornets, adding Zion to the LaMelo Ball team would make you one of the most fun watches in the league, would sell a ton of jerseys, would sell a ton of tickets, and make you a playoff team in the Eastern Conference that's kind of in flux at this point in time. So if I'm the Hornets or the Blazers, I legitimately think about doing these deals, and if I'm the Pelicans, I am more than willing to give up Zion to get Scoot and a good player. But let me know your thoughts. This might be kind of a hot takey video, I'm not sure. Some people are definitely not going to agree, but to me it's just the cost of business. It is a deal for the future and a deal for the now, and one that I think could really work out positively. Congrats to the Nuggets, by the way, on being the 2023 NBA champs. I'd like to talk about them at some time, but we'll see what that ends up being. Thanks for watching. That's going to be it for me today. Think about subscribing on the road to 8,000 subs. Hopefully you enjoyed and you have a good rest of your day, because that's going to be it for me. So yeah, have a good one. That's it for me. Peace.